We jump to Alien Earth, and this is the recap. Disclaimer: spoilers ahead.
Cryo really creeps me.
So there's 5 companies.
Are you asking if I did my job?
Why don't we just get into our breakfast cereal?
Another approach.
Will do.
What if?
We start the first episode of Alien Earth aboard the USCSS Maginot, a ship owned by the Wayland Yutani Corporation. This present mission has been going on for 65 years, and the year is 2120. For quite some time, the research ship Maginot has been gathering specimens, both living and dead. The crew emerges from Cyrosleep to act as exposition devices to describe the current status of the globe, even though they are still 805 million miles from Earth. Although they are four businesses, Prodigy, the newcomers to the area, wants to alter the current power structure. On Earth, these men are all fighting for dominance and power. Beyond that, Yutani rules Mars and Saturn, while Dynamic rules the Moon. As we now know, Magnet is transporting some really unpleasant creatures. Alien, space slugs, face huggers, and more are present. One of the engineers recommends that they simply shoot the specimens and go on.
Simulate adolescence as you grow in. Like me.
Not yet.
Wow. And that's exactly what he did. He's like to dance.
Yeah.
Promise.
The bottom of your mind. And above all,
But Captain Morrow quickly points out that it's not an option because these specimens are a crucial component of their mission. We get a better view of Prodigy on Earth. They have an island off the mainland called Neverland where they conduct research. Boy Cavalier, a multi-billionaire who works in the cloning and synth industries, is in charge of everything here. In his most recent experiment, the brain of a sick girl named Marcy is transplanted into the body of a synthetic named Wendy. A new human stroke synth hybrid looks to be the result of the successful procedure. Marcy is still getting used to her adult synthetic body, but she can run extremely fast, fall from huge heights without being hurt, and is learning new things every day. She is still getting used to her physique, although it won't be as a big of a cultural shock because the engineers have attempted to replicate adolescence as she develops into this adult synth body. The truth is that she won't mature like everyone else and won't have any true emotions. However, Wendy is not alone in this situation. Other kids are also coming to Neverland prepared to make the switch. Wendy is supposed to be these boys' big sister and help the kids on the path to immortality according to the farm. Cavalier claims he has purposefully selected youngsters because they are the ideal median for this voyage. Well, adult minds are too stiff, their minds are flexible and continue developing.
Joe DiMaggio, like the bass. He's really good at it too. He has to work with soldiers.
Locate the survivors. Evacuate.
Alarm roar throughout the Magnot as they return to port. It is evident that the crew is being massacred one by one and that the specimens have escaped. Morrow, one of the synthesizers we observed earlier, reports the breakout to Earth. There will soon be a collision with Earth, which is bad news for us because there is a xenomorph on the loose. It's still unknown how precisely the specimens broke out or whether Morrow planned it, but he nevertheless sacrifices the other crew members to the alien. In Prodigy City, New Sea Arm, Wendy has developed an obsession with a man named Joe. She keeps an eye on him on the monitors while he works with Prodigy. The obsession has its roots in the past. In reality, Joe is Marcy's brother from the past, and Prodigy informed him that she had passed away during the synth procedure. Wendy still has a strong affection for her brother, nevertheless, and her admiration for him continues to shape her personality since she still harbors her little brain within her adult synth body. But when the Maginot crashes in the middle of the city, everyone is instantly thrown into a frenzy. Joe is one of the initial responders, all of whom enter armed. The team heads straight to the scene of the collision to search for survivors. They discover dead scattered throughout the ship, but Morrow is the only one who has survived. He notifies Wayland headquarters that they have boarded by speaking to Mother, the AI on board, right away. He plans to wait for backup in the armory, which is where he is going. He soon encounters Hoyt and Anant, two first responders in the lab, though. Morrow doesn't see the really gloomy image as a thing slithers into one of the men's suits. He actually forces them to down their guns and ties them to one of the pipes by holding them at gunpoint. Unfortunately, this bag kills them both when it attacks when they are immobile. The cryo chamber and signs of a chest buster are discovered by the other group, which consists of Rashidi, Siberian, and Joe. They go to look into it more after failing to spot the face hugger in a nearby chamber. Wendy sees CCTV of Joe going to the crash scene when she is in the middle of several examinations. So she goes inside to meet Boy Cavalier. Cavalier chooses to consider Wendy's suggestion and sends her and the lost boys into the crash site, even though Atom Ians is adamantly opposed to the synthesizers being in the prototype stage. Wendy will stop at nothing to save her brother.
No, see the blue lips?
That forensics, Agatha.
It's bad.
Three Magnot crew members have perished in a medical bay when Hamid, Alex Lowther, Siberian, DM Kamili, and Rashidi Mobail arrive. Well, something leaked from one victim's esophagus. Hamid discovers they inhaled poisons. They are stopped from the wreckage by a xenomorph. Before the kids were put into their new bodies, Dame Silvers saw recordings of them. Samuel Blankin's character, Boy Cavalier, ambushes her and makes a joke about having seen the video. They talk about how their finding offers them an advantage in the intelligence race versus synthetics and ends death. Sylvia finds Cavalier's need to converse with someone more intelligent than himself insulting, while Cavalier dismisses Cash as merely a robot that repeats words. Wendy shares information about her brother with slightly Adash Gurav on the trip into the debris. She begs him not to tell anyone, then he explains Hamid to the entire group. Timothy character. Cash instructs them to prepare for landing. Siberian and Rashidi leap over a ledge on the stairs. Hamid sees and hears the xenomorph before he leaps. He jumps, but it hits him in the middle, sending him down a floor below his teammates. Before it can get to him, he dashes to an elevator and shuts it. He has a flashback to the previous day when Hamid requests that a prodigy robot terminate his contract so that he could attend medical school. It shouldn't have been feasible because he had 7 months left on his contract. Cash, Sylvia, Arthur, Cavalier, and Atom observe from their iPads as Wendy observes. Cash fears that she is observing him excessively. Wendy abruptly taps her iPad and uses the robot to communicate with Hamid. Hamid and everyone else are startled as she presses the gadget to make an Ice Age based joke. Wendy has not been designed to do just that. After realizing her error, she makes sure Hamid remains by refusing his request. The human leader of the Wayland Yutani Corporation, Yutani, Sandra G. Sensidivar, calls Cavalier back at Neverland. Cavalier pulls Yutani away to the attorneys after the two battle. Atom and Cavalier decide after the call that they must retrieve everything is on the Magnet. Wendy starts to hear odd noises at the crash site, but nobody else on the squad can. As Wendy locates Hamid, Cash communicates with the command on the ground. Cash tells Slightly to accompany her as she dashes off to save him. Cash and Wendy lead the two squads as they enter the Magnet. A big pod oozing slime hangs from the ceiling as Cash, Nibs, Smee, Kali, and Tutos locate the monster lab. They see the blood-sucking insects scuttling away from two dead warriors. When we turn around, we notice that the eyeball thing has taken over a body, even though the cat looks to be drinking from a pool of blood. Kali and Smee assist in containing it as it launches at Nibs. They hear a party going on as Hamid locates one of his squad members. They find that someone is throwing an 18th century costume party when they knock on the door of an apartment. The host is refusing to go and is dressed like a member of the French nobility.
I cleared all the... and that the fire suppression system is down.
He closes the door, but Hamid's colleague is killed by the xenomorph's onslaught. It kills everyone in the apartment after pursuing Hamid and the aristocrat inside. Morrow stuns the xenomorph with an electrical rifle as it prepares to murder Hamid. Following Hamid's shock, Morrow catches the xenomorph in a cocoon and drags it outside the apartment. Cash heads upstairs to the lab where Nibs, Me, and Kali remain on duty. After Cash connects to the computer system aboard and learns that this was a deep space research spacecraft, Kali likens the space to a zoo. Just before Morrow is about to enter the elevator, a prodigy warrior intercepts him. All of the troops are killed when the monster awakens in the process. It does not assault Morrow, but it poses to smell him. Turtles keeps an eye on the sack that hangs from the ceiling, and it keeps an eye on him with a vine-like appendage. He passes by without any problems and it doesn't assault him. In order to defend the region until an evacuation is feasible, Cash sends Smee to meet Wendy close to a xenomorph egg patch. After waking up, Hammett wanders around the blood-stained dwelling. The third home run ball from Reggie Jackson's historic 1977 World Series game is the particular prize he finds in a room. Hammett recalls watching the game with his father as a kid, and Wendy is waiting behind him as the TV monitor goes out. When she asks him who he was speaking to, he acknowledges that it was his father. He reports him as adding that there is a term for that type of hero and that occasionally the world offers you a chance to shine. He addressed him as Mr. October. Hammett discovers they are both synthetics after checking slightly for cats. When Cash calls Wendy to reserve the egg room, she invites Hammett to accompany them. Slightly demonstrates that they are something unique rather than synthetic when they pass past the Maginot. Slightly informs Hammett that Wendy is his sister in response to more queries from Hammett. Slightly is left with Hammett when Wendy gives her the all clear. She informs him that she has been observing him and is still alive. He tells Wendy that he attended her funeral because he doesn't believe her. Wendy admits that she was never meant to meet the boy genius again, even if they both work for him. Hammett is still in disbelief and finds it difficult to understand. He asks additional questions as they go along that only his sister would be able to answer. Hammett gives Wendy a hug after verifying a few highly precise recollections. However, slightly interrupts their moment by requesting that they view the eggs. As Hammett moves between the eggs, Wendy hears the sound once more. They don't react to Wendy or slightly, but one of them gently opens up close to Hammett. It snatches Hammett and plunges through a breach in the ship after catching a glimpse of the xenomorph sprinting along the corridors. Slightly is left alone with the eggs while Wendy pursues the beast.
You okay? You know in the book they're called curly pickles?
Dollars of R&D just
With all due respect, it's a crash site.
When episode 3 of Alien Earth kicks off, Wendy is searching desperately for her brother Joe at the start of the episode as she runs through the Magnet's debris. Cash, Timothy Oliphant, and a few of the Lost Boys are studying the extraterrestrial specimens in the meanwhile. The constantly frightened Nibs, who dislikes their affinity to Peter Pan characters, finds it a bit too much. After realizing that the rescue effort is ended, Boy Cavalier radios in. The specimens must now be secured and returned for further examination. Although Dame Sylvia and Alta wish to concentrate on creating the new synthesizers implanted with human awareness, there are 5 species on board that might be worth trillions. Wendy finds herself with semi-truck containers in a damaged section of the ship. Wendy, or Marcy as her brother still calls her, rushes for him despite Joe screaming out from one trailer that it's a trap and not to come for him. The xenomorph slowly infiltrates, releasing him from his sticky alien bonds. It slings away as Wendy and Joe approaches the monster prepared to defend themselves. The siblings refuse to go, but they hear a stomping noise coming from above the trailer. Wendy pushes the paper cutter blade forward, impaling the alien through the ceiling and causing its acid blade to fall. Joe now takes on the role of the seeking hero when Wendy is flung out as the trailer is brutally flipped. Surprisingly, the xenomorphs Tail impales him through the back and knocks him to the ground before he can locate her. Wendy uses a bat to snag the mouth and keep it in position as it approaches its second mouth ready to slam through his face. Wendy gets captured by it despite their attempts to cage it in a different room. Joe finds the xenomorph's head torn off, but his sister is still alive. Rather than appearing heroic, Wendy is terrified before passing out. As he falls beside her, Joe's condition doesn't get any better. Poor Slightly has been left to protect the alien eggs by himself while all of this is happening. While Smee arrives to take him back to Cash, he is both relieved and afraid. Like the two children they truly are, they chat excitedly about their travels, but Morrow interrupts them with a rifle aimed at them. Since they lack weapons, he tells them about the monsters that emerge from the eggs they are near. Smee would prefer to go right now, but Morrow, the cyborg, connects to a computer to send data. He inquires as to whether the hybrids may hurt other people after being informed that his orders are solely to be concerned about the specimens. A blade emerges from Morrow's arm as he wants to know what type of machine they are. Just as they are about to reveal who they really are, Cash interrupts Morrow just in time, letting the two hybrids hide behind him like young boys. He leaps from the Maginot as an egg starts to hatch after Morrow assures him that Yutani will never allow Prodigy to own anything on her ship. The cyborg is nowhere to be seen, but Wendy, Joe, and the severed xenomorph are returned, comatose and receiving medical attention. All of the specimens on board, including Boy Cavalier, return home.
Yeah, nothing.
No?
Just getting a decade's work on something new.
Nobody in or out who isn't synthetic.
And he threatened.
What did he whisper to you?
I don't know. With Yutani.
The monster with acid blood within the egg had him giddy with anticipation. When he approaches too closely, Cash pushes his boss away and forces him to leave the room despite the angry expression on his face. Following a warning that the extraterrestrial needs a human host, Cash is placed in command of the lab and everyone who isn't synthetic is banned. Atom Ains, Adrian Edmondson, Boy Cavalier's right-hand man, interrogates Slightly and Smee regarding Morrow and his whispers to them. A little remembered, Ain seems unconcerned, but Smee fears that Morrow will discover them and murder them. Morrow will be apprehended or murdered before the day is over, and they are in a facility in the middle of the ocean. Cash is seen closely observing these two lost boys as the guide departs. Morrow is now evading capture in museum telephones Yutani in the meanwhile. He informs her that Prodigy has taken the monsters, but she still wants to know where they are. Meanwhile, Boy Cavalier is questioned by Carly, Irena James, one of the more intelligent lost boys, about Wendy being his favorite since she is the greatest. She believes it to be incorrect. Wendy mainly thinks about her brother, while Carly is an intellectual with ideas. She smiles as Cavalier reminds her that all geniuses are children since they have the same limitless imagination as children and Carly. She is now in the running to be his favorite Cavalier, who is looking for someone to challenge him, informs her. Morrow hacks into Slightly's head while he's watching TV alone in his room. He and the other lost boys have come to terms with who they are. Slightly is apprehensive about his ability and refuses to speak to the cyborg, but Morrow coerces him by requesting that the youngster become his buddy. He agrees since he is a little unable to refuse. Like the others, he is a flawed child with a unique personality. For instance, it is clear that Nibs does not like her new body as she stands in the chamber, wide-eyed and terrified, looking at it in the mirror. Nibs seems to prefer being a young girl again, even while Carly is adoring it. When the first of the Lost Boys returns to the internet, Dame Sylvia is sleeping near Wendy's bed. She appears to be alright, but she is only human. Joe is in poor condition after having a lung removed during surgery. Joe survives his operation and is sent to a pod to recuperate, but his internal organ is now sitting in a big liquid-filled container prepared for an unknown event. Carly then records Cash, Tutus, and Carly brings out an extraterrestrial egg for inspection. Cash begins chopping away at the shell, revealing the membrane beneath. Despite being far away, Wendy can hear the facehugger inside thanks to her extraordinary sense of hearing. Cash rips the facehugger from its shell, holds it down and stuns it until it loses consciousness. Wendy observes Cash cutting at it from a window outside. As we observe a tadpole-sized xenomorph being taken out of the facehugger's insides, she approaches the lab despite the unbearable sound of the eggs, approaching closer before collapsing. Cash carries Joe's lungs to the container and it all becomes evident as the xenomorph swiftly sleeps inside the flesh. Cavalier is attempting to make a monster.
Just one species.
Alone. Subsidiary of a subsidiary of a.
Tell me you didn't bring those things back here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wendy?
I'm all better.
Wendy.
Kirsch was.
No.
No.
Tell me the truth.
Boys, think of it as a... Oh, the...
When Wendy wakes up in Alien Arts' 4th episode, Cash and the others are watching over her. Since Cash tells the scientist here that the frequency seems to increase louder the closer she approaches to the xenomorph, her hearing has been temporarily turned off. Boy Cavalier arrives and arranges traffic, choosing to turn off her hearing as long as Joe, the plot armor himself, is still alive. After receiving a replacement lung, he is startled to discover that the lab contains lethal organisms. Cavalier tells Atom Ince that these individuals, particularly Plot Armor Joe, are living in his universe and not the other way around, even if he eventually gives in and lets them leave. Joe tells Wendy by himself that he is upset with Prodigy for keeping his sister's existence and what happened to her a secret. Though he has a strong animosity toward Prodigy, he agrees to support her for the time being. However, a Noah Hawley performance wouldn't be complete without some psychedelic imagery and montages, which enables us to switch to Morrow and Slightly. Morrow tells his new acquaintance to fetch an egg as he continues to exploit him. Once more, they converse telepathically, and Morrow employs moral reasoning to persuade the child. Additionally, Morrow is able to obtain Slightly's true name, which is Arush Singh. If this synth doesn't cooperate, he has a lot of leverage over him and plenty of material for blackmail. But for the time being, Slightly goes inside and tries to get the egg for Morrow. It won't be easy, but perhaps it won't be as hard as we thought. After watching Wendy go inside the lab and faint, well, no one seemed to notice in the last episode. The eyeball monster's trial in the lab continue with a sheep serving as the host. As it digs into its eye and seizes control, Boy Cavalier observes this carefully regulated experiment with curiosity. The fact that the
Nibs, that's your name.
It, sir, from me.
We'd like I should tell you that if you're not.
The fact that the creature is extremely clever, altering brainwaves and remaining still while observing them all, intrigues Cavalier and Cash. Arthur separates himself from his wife, Dame Sylvia, and tells her of his worries about Cavalier and these artificial offspring. He sees the kids in these artificial bodies, but he doesn't believe what they are doing is scientific. He wants to maintain their established procedures. However, Nibs shows up out of the blue and declares she is pregnant. After explaining how babies are formed, Sylvia shows her a schematic of the body of an adult woman in her office. However, Nibs is not having any of it. It seems that her experience with the eyeball thing about the sheep has left her with PTSD. Sylvia brings security in when she lashes out, determines that she should be kept in her room, and raises a level 3 event for her. Atom Ains questions Joe in the midst of all of this, given that Joe has a new lung because of Prodigy and that he won't see Wendy again if he leaves the island because she is also their property. He truly has no option but to comply. Boy Cavalier invites Wendy in for a conversation later that day. She regrets that he hacked open the xenomorph, forgetting that she used a little knife to fight one of these aliens in the previous episode. Naturally, with hardly a scrape on her body, this also required slicing open the xenomorph and beheading it. During their conversation, Cavalier coerces Wendy into cooperating with him by using Joe as leverage. She has the secret to solving the puzzle of what these Xenos are saying, which he wants to know exactly. Joe will be let to stay in return. Morrow uses Slightly's mother, whom he visits in India, as a means of blackmailing the Singh into complying. He determines that Slightly should sneak a human into the lab so that the face hugger can function instead of removing the egg. Morrow will then locate him and extract the specimen. Given the previous conversation about loyalty and hearing no evil, it would seem Cash is aware of Slightly's relationship with Morrow, but is simply waiting for the ideal opportunity to attack. Cash observes as Wendy enters the lab at the end of the episode and discovers the little baby alien monster has broken free from the lab. As the show ends, she reaches out to touch it and marvels at the creature.
Hey, Mara, wake up.
Two of the clan things got.
I've been drinking for so long.
Aye.
Quiet. I said.
In seconds.
So you're saying
House is locked down, or our life.
The engineering's official.
On the USCSS Magnum, the crew goes back to falling asleep in their pod. The overlay text informs us that the spacecraft is 17 days away from Earth. Clem awakens Morrow and informs him that two facehuggers have fled. Captain Dinsdale was killed by one and Bronsky was connected to the second. Bronsky also developed a close friendship with Zaveri while Morrow was sleeping. Rahim, Shmael, Chibuzo and others remain conscious. Still in his briefs, Morrow enters the room and discovers the captain's body. They learned that the face hugger bleeds acid when Rahim attempted to remove the monster. For the next 2 weeks, Bronsky's only viable choice is to place him into cryosleep. As Zaveri makes his way to the bridge, Schmile informs Morrow that their navigation has been severely damaged, making them more like a rogue rocket than a spacecraft under control. According to Chibuzo, none of the containers can escape yet. Zaveri does not want to incite the alarm, but Morrow thinks there is a saboteur aboard the ship. Using this opportunity, he criticizes Zaveri for her friendship with Bronsky and threatens to take over due to her compromised state. Morrow informs Zaveri that Yutani prioritized the cargo's life over everyone else's, even the crew. Clem, Rahim, and Tang cryopreserved Bronsky. Tang keeps an eye on the girl in her pod even after they all go their ways. As he investigates the fire, Morrow observes the animals and the fire's aftermath. In addition to witnessing the facehuggers assault their victims, Morrow spots an unidentified individual in the hull. While Morrow watches video of their personal interactions, Zaveri laments about Bronsky. Speaking to the engineers, Morrow expresses his concerns about a saboteur slinking through the ship's vents. He must view the drawings for the spacecraft. In order to defend them, Morrow gives Clem a rifle and continues to share his findings with him. Although Clem is using a recovery tool, the communication files with Earth have been erased and damaged. When Zaveri talks to Mother, she affirms Morrow's assertions that the cargo's survival comes first. On board, Morrow recalls his daughter as he examines his personal belongings. Wayland Yatani informed him via business communication that he had died in the 8th year of the expedition. Rahim buried the body of the commander in space. Morrow, Zaveri, and Tang are informed by Shmuel that their fuel stores were also depleted by their damage. They learn about a containment breach in the pod all of a sudden. Bronsky was slain by a beast that got away through the cryoglass. In order to prevent acid blood from corroding the ship's hull, Morrow gives Zaveri an electric shock cannon. Morrow wants to have a modest gathering, but Rahim wants to wake up the crew to assist. Chibuzo uses dead rats to feed the leeches. The second leech creeps to the top of the case and opens it while she is preoccupied with observing one eating on the rat. Chibuzo becomes irritated as the eye monster continues to knock on its container. The leech shoots parasites into her water bottle as she puts it away. After Rahim informs her of Bronsky's passing, the eye monster knocks its confinement down a cliff, shattering its glass container as they leave. No one pays attention to Zaveri when she calls a meeting of the team. Zaveri is aware that a xenomorph is aboard and that it will develop. Zaveri finally takes away some of Malachite's share after he eats and fumbles. Malachite uses Chibuzo's contaminated water to cleanse his throat after coughing. Morrow shouts to the team, alerting them to the fact that Zaveri, Clem, and he are armed. An additional share will be awarded to anyone who offers information that results in an arrest. Rahim is questioned by Morrow, but the medical officer seems clueless. When Malachite falls and starts vomiting blood, the engineers are working on the ship attempting to recover its navigation. Chibuzo observes that the eye has escaped at the research lab. To make sure the eye is confined, the ladies shut the lab when Rahim summons Zaveri back to the bridge. Tang responds to Moro's queries by saying that although some of the crew members are identified as being in cryosleep, this does not always guarantee that they are. After going over the computer footage, Moro eventually learns that Petrovich had communicated with Boy Cavalier. Boy Cavalier says he will give Petrovich a new body if he can get the Maginot to land in Prodigy territory. As Malachite alarms go off, Moro affirms that Petrovich is not in his cryotube. Chibuzo and Rahim enter a surgical room. A xenomorph kills Tang as they are opening him up. Rahim, Chibuzo, and Malachite are killed when the tick releases a gas in the air as Rahim tries to remove it. Clem informs the crew that Tang has passed away. Moro assumes charge of the ship and gives Zaveri and Shmuel instructions to meet at the bridge. Moro attempts to bring them back to the other cryopods, but Petrovich shoots Clem. They must hide in the scientific lab, but Clem is killed by Petrovich. Moro uses the blade of his arm to defeat Petrovich, and Petrovich chuckles as he passes away, relieved that his partner's killers won't reach out. Because of Moro's activities, the eye is able to escape confinement. Leeches consume Clem. The xenomorph confronts Zaveri in another part of the ship. The Thing follows her through the ship when she flees. She locks herself in when she gets to the bridge, but only Shmuel has survived. She speaks to him, but he doesn't answer. It becomes apparent that the eye has seized control of Shmuel's body as he turns. Moro boards the bridge, but he dashes past Zaveri to enter the room with Mother after noticing him lying on the ground. After a conflict between the eye and the xenomorph, the latter destroys Shmuel's body. Moro saves himself but condemns Zaveri to the xenomorph by forcing the door to Mother's control room closed. As the spacecraft plummets to Earth, he enters the impact chamber. Yutani and Moro meet a few days later. He informs her that he intends to murder Boy Cavalier and retrieve the specimens.
They soon know that they can't you remain like this for. If she's gonna graduate.
Pregnant.
We return to the lab and retrieve all of those momentarily abandoned strands after last week's excellent flashback episode, which caught us up in the specifics that led to an alien-infested Magnot plummeting back to Earth. In Alien Earth Episode 6, Yutani, the new head of the Wayland Yutani farm, told her loyal staffer Moro at the close of the previous episode that Boy Cavalier had finally consented to a face-to-face encounter. The ruling body, the Five, which is really a combination of the 5 major businesses, even appointed a particular barrister McAfee as a moderator for the meeting, which is held in one of the contemporary megapolises. Cavalier is as rude and brazen as ever, and he has no plans to change his mind now. Yutani had convened the conference to reiterate a demand that Prodigy promptly restore the wrecked USCSS Magnot, a research vessel owned by her firm, along with all of her cargo. The demand is not taken seriously by Cavalier, who subtly blames Wayland Yutani for the entire issue and responds that he is prepared to refund everything as soon as he finds a way to remove the spaceship from the crash site without causing any more harm. It quickly becomes clear that neither side is interested in the spaceship that crashed, but they are all highly motivated to obtain the alien species that were within. Cavalier freely admits that the Magnot had been bringing extraterrestrials back to Earth, which is completely forbidden by the rules of this futuristic society, after feeling a little frightened by his rival's remarks. He wants McAfee to bring this to the attention of the five and seriously harm Wayland Yutani, or at the very least break up the meeting. The conference goes on, though, since the barrister is just as corrupt as the others and appears to have been bribed by Yutani to turn a blind eye. Yutani now asserts, in a kind of public defense of her company, that the aliens being gathered inside the Magnot were never intended to be returned to Earth, but rather were to be transported to another planet for study. She then insists that Boy Cavalier turn over the aliens immediately and offers him $20 billion as a mark of remorse for all the suffering done to Prodigy and the families who lost loved ones in the disaster. Although Cavalier agrees to the bargain and properly interprets this as equivalent to ransom money, he quickly makes another cunning move by declaring that he is prepared to release the aliens, but only once the 6 weeks quarantine period has ended. Boy Cavalier is now very motivated to abide by the law, which once again stipulates that any living item from outer space must be kept in quarantine for at least 6 weeks in order to safeguard Earth and its inhabitants. Cavalier declines Yutani's offer of $50 billion to acquire her aliens immediately, demonstrating that money was never a factor in his decision. He only wants to use this meeting to solidify his power over Wayland Yutani. As a result, he now flatly refuses to turn up the aliens before 6 weeks, saying that he is worried about Earth's safety, but in fact he is only buying his scientists enough time to study the creatures and most likely breed them. By the end of the conference, the initial offer of $20 billion remains in place, which means Yutani forfeits both the opportunity to obtain the foreigners lawfully and a substantial sum of money. However, she is still working on her covert plot to obtain the aliens through Morrow. In addition to being extremely graphic, Tutu's death is one of the main highlights of Alien Episode 6, since we were given the impression that the hybrids were impervious to the majority of alien attack. Cash needs someone else's help to feed the alien specimens at the lab while he travels with Boy Cavalier to the megapolis for the appointment with Yutani. Perhaps sensing that a human would be more vulnerable than a hybrid in this situation, Cash asks Tutu to do it rather than depending on any of his human helpers. At first, he wants Kali to accompany Tutu, But when she lies and says she isn't there, he tells the hybrid to go to the lab and feed the aliens by herself. Up until he unintentionally destroys the feeder of one of the rooms, which contains an alien fly species. Toodles accomplishes everything correctly. However, the T, or sailors, which has already cut itself into a ship and gained complete control of the animal, merely watches while the alien flies consume turtles. Even though not all alien species attack hybrids, it appears that some do, and they may even cause them great harm. Turtles' face is rapidly attacked by flies, and their secretion melts it away and covers it in a sticky, whitish material. The hybrid has little hope of surviving because he is still imprisoned inside the chamber and no one else is present. He suffers a very agonizing death, but if he hadn't displayed the arrogant overconfidence that most people possess, he could have avoided the danger and taken Kali with him. Even though the T Ocella's extraterrestrial appeared to have aided the humans in the previous episode, it now appears to harbor a sincere animosity for hybrids when it plays a major part. It attacked Nibs for this reason at the start of the series, and now it purposefully smashes into the chamber's glass to confuse Turtles with a loud thud and trap him within the fly chamber. Throughout his brief time on Neverland Island, Hamid begins to worry about his sister's safety since he believes that the scientists and high officials at Prodigy are up to no good. Following some of the other people's assurances that everything is well, Hamid goes to Other Sylvia, since he has previously witnessed the man's intense love and concern for the hybrids. Importantly, this occurs at a point in the story where their exchange is crucial since Prodigy has already dismissed Arthur. Arthur was sacked by Atom Inns, who told him to leave the island by the end of the day and even threatened to shoot him if he didn't comply with Dame Sylvia's request to erase the hybrid's memory. Arthur has so lost his love for his wife and is collecting his belongings to leave the institution in a furious and disappointed manner when Hamid approaches him. He no longer has anything to lose and is still motivated by his concern and compassion for the hybrids, which he believes are being mercilessly subjected to pointless experiments. Thus, Arthur surreptitiously informs Hamid that Wendy is not secure on the island and that he needs to go with her as soon as possible. In order to prevent the Prodigy authorities from taking any action against him or his sister, he also provides Hamid with the code for the boat that is needed to depart the island. He even hacks into the system to make sure that none of the hybrids can be traced anymore. Simultaneously, after failing to persuade or even entice Hamid to accompany him, slightly anxiously heads to the laboratory to carry out his plan in some way. Arthur enters the scene as Slightly is having an emotional breakdown, which is aided by Moro's threat to kill his mother if he doesn't obey. Slightly had long believed that Hamid was the sole person he could utilize to carry out his scheme to extract the xenomorph facehugger from the eggs. Slightly unlocks the room holding the xenomorph eggs and locks the entire lab from the outside as Arthur goes into the alien fly chamber to recover Tutus's body. As is customary, the facehugger senses a human being close by and hatches from the egg. It then lunges for Aldous' face, effectively implanting the xenomorph embryo into his body and proving that he is the most recent victim of the aliens in the series. After the heinous procedure is over and Arthur, who is now controlled by the facehugger, stops resisting, slightly returns to the lab and pulls Arthur into a nearby air vent. But because he forgets to seal the fly container, the alien insects fly out right away and even come close to assaulting slightly. The release of the flies will be disastrous for the other hybrids because in a few days the xenomorph embryo that was implanted within Arthur's body will develop into a chest-burster and tear out of his body, killing him in the process.
Maybe you agree.
I don't care. Let me.
At the start of the 7th episode, Slightly is in his bedroom next to Arthur, who has a facehugger over his head. He attempts to give Arthur a drink because he is a child inside that artificial body, but all it does is make the alien grip on even more tightly. Knowing that something is happening, Smee knocks on his door and demands to be allowed in. As soon as he enters, he sees Arthur's body and he implores Smee to be quiet or else his family will be murdered. He begs Smee for assistance in getting Arthur to the store and she grudgingly agrees. After picking up the lead man, the two proceed down a hallway to make sure everything is okay. Alarms are sounding in the lab in the interim. After discovering Toto's body, Cash enters and watches as one of the flies start acid over some gadgets. As Boy Cavalier enters and finds Toto's, prodigy troops enter and stun the two escaping aliens right away before placing them in confinement units. After initially being horrified, he soon becomes enthralled with the flies' ability to consume their meal. At first, Cavalier thinks it was an accident, but Cash has him view the video which shows the ship hitting the glass with its head to trigger Tootles into shutting the door. Incredulous, Cavalier requests that Cash relocate the ship. The xenomorph instantly looks up from his prison when Wendy enters. She claims she must inform the other lost boys after witnessing Tootles' body, but Cavalier is against it. Soldiers block her path as she attempts to escape, so Wendy yells at the xenomorph, which slams the glass in annoyance. The soldiers quickly move aside as a result. Cash finds out that someone has disabled their trackers, but Cavalier wants the other hybrids located before Wendy can speak to them after she leaves. Wendy returns to her room and tells Joe what transpired. Wendy agrees with her brother when he says it's time to go, but she won't go without those who are similar to her. Carly, who Wendy visits with Nibs, wants to know why Nibs' memory has been erased. Carly wants to blame Wendy right away once she tells them what happened to Tootles. Boy Cavalier wants to assist others the way he assisted them, according to her. Despite Carly's vow to remain silent until they can safely escape, this lost boy will not be going with them. Next to the xenomorph cage, Wendy may control a computer screen by touching it from another room. She opens it, allowing the creature to escape, even if she is someplace else. As Wendy, Joe, and Nibs flee the destruction, the alien tears through all the people it encounters. Boy Cavalier discovered that Arthur remained on the island after being instructed to leave. He confronts his wife, Dame Sylvia, to find out whether he switched off the trackers, but she says he would never do that. However, footage reveals that the tracker was switched off by Arthur and Joe hours ago. An alert and the repeated phrase, secure lab breach, interrupts the inquiry. As he views the images of the devastation, Cavalier becomes distressed. Meanwhile, Cash sees Smee and Slightly slipping out of Arthur's body. The synthetic already knows what occurred with Morrow and he isn't here to stop them. Slightly tells him what happened. Rather than unlocking an elevator for them, he provides a quicker route to the shore. The three escapees venture through the woods outside during the day before discovering a little graveyard that houses all of the lost boys' prior human remains. Wendy informs them that they are still here, but Joe rushes to masses to grieve. Slightly and Smee hide from roving troops outside, but when they return their attention, Arthur's body has vanished. At the moment, a bewildered Arthur approaches them after the dead facehugger falls from a tree. To get him moving, they tell him about a gas leak, but as they reach the beach, with the help of another falsehood that Dame is waiting for them here, Arthur realizes that the hybrids are lying and are afraid. It's too late, yet he wishes he could go back and assist them. Something inside of them wants to go out. The chest burster erupts from Arthur as he collapses, then ducks into the underbrush. Slightly searches desperately for it, but it's long gone. Slightly is just concerned with concealing the corpse, but Smee begins to panic. Before reaching the end of the island, when around a dozen Wayland Kitani soldiers emerge from the ocean, they drag him down a small creek on a homemade raft. Among them is Morrow. He wonders where the alien is after noticing Arthur's hollowed out body. Morrow only instructs the other troops to carry the two lost boys along in the hunt for the Xenomorph, but he desperately hopes that his mother will still be well. As the prodigy genius observes the ship in its tiny containment box in his office, Atom Ames chats to Boy Cavalier about Wendy and the others leaving. Cavalier displays the pi sign to the ship. He requests the next two digits, informing the octopus eye that all civilization will be aware of what happens next. When the numbers are correct, the ship stomps its foot many times on cue. Then it starts to bleat as though it's attempting to communicate. Cavalier wants the alien to come out and transform into a human, but Ames is worried about that happening. He knows just who to employ to get it to talk. A quarter of a mile from the boat dock, the three of them are in the woods. Wendy pauses and listens carefully before the troops emerge with their weapons pulled from the underground. Wendy gives them a warning. The Xenomorph, who had been in a cage, then leaps down from a tree and tears the soldiers to pieces. The alien approaches Wendy gently and pauses, knowing that they may be easily slain. After chittering once again, the hybrid stoops to touch its bloodied head with a bending hand before the alien flees. As Moro takes his squad inside the Prodigy facility, the baby xenomorph is confined in a net. However, Cash emerges front and center, clutching the caged baby alien, and Cavalier soldiers emerge and encircle them. He orders Slightly and Smee to come to him and request that Moro and his men put down their guns. Moro is then arrested along with Yutani troops. Nibs, Joe, and Wendy arrive at the wharf where a boat is moored. Guns drawn, Siberian, Rushdie, and others emerge before they can take off. She instantly tears his jaw off in response to one soldier's tearing Nibs' toy away and throwing it into the ocean. Now that the battle has escalated, Wendy is chatting to her extraterrestrial companion when Joe covers her mouth with his palm, preventing her from speaking to it. As all of this is going on, Nibs is tearing through everyone and nearly kills Siberian before Joe stuns her. The Real Monsters, which concludes Alien Earth Season 1, Episode 8, ending is fantastic. The Lost Boys are being punished for their unsuccessful escape as Xenomorph is unsecured, and Boy Cavalier has lost all control over the situation, leaving Neverland in a state of turmoil. Wendy, meantime, has to cope with her brother's rage at causing harm to Nibs. The unexpected cellmates Hamid and Morrow find common cause in their rage at the corporations and with Wendy's assistance escape. The Xenomorph is shown strolling through the woodland at the start of Alien Earth's 8th episode. It is beneficial for the troops scattered over the island. However, it cannot consume certain aquatic creatures. Dame Sylvia is one of them. She visits the cemetery site to honor the children. She doesn't actually expect the Xenomorph to ambush her. She is saved, however, when soldiers arrive and successfully kill it. The situation on Prodigy Island is becoming worse, but the Xenomorph is still alive. By sabotaging their satellites and destroying the undersea cable connections, Yutani has cut off their means of communication. However, all of the hybrids are being held in a confinement cell together, and none of the additional employees have been rescued off the island. After talking about the ramifications of being children in adult bodies, Wendy recommends that they band together and fight back against Prodigy. Since they don't know how it will hold up, Atom Ains doesn't believe it's a smart idea to put the youngsters in this group. Additionally, he is concerned about their understaffing. As we speak, out on the field, the Xenomorph is killing troops one by one. However, Wendy pushes Boy Cavalier to depart even if he refuses. Wendy makes the decision to speak with the Xenomorph in order to escape the situation. The enemy hears her sprinting back to headquarters from the woods, and all the gadgets are turned off instantly. Morrow wakes up in Joe's cell back in confinement. Wendy is furious that he shot Neebs and is watching him on the monitors. He is one of them, Smee tells her, with a metal can on his arm acting as a weapon and one guy watching over him. Morrow breaks open the door with ease, knocks the guard unconscious, and resumes his scheme from where he abandoned it. Cash is working on some electronics in the lab during all of this. When Morrow walks, the two end up getting physical. However, Morrow quickly subdues Cash, so it's not much of a struggle. But something erupts as he fires at one of the glass enclosures. Cash renders Morrow comatose by strangling him. Wendy unlocks the door as Cavalier descends to view the hybrids. Cavalier talks about how he took over the company for himself after killing his own father when he was 6 years old. Unfortunately, the hybrids are too strong for the lone guard he is with, and they quickly eliminate him before forcing Cavalier to flee. In order to identify the many personalities and meditate the situation, Wendy divides the group up and they play a game of hide and seek. Smee and Slightly are assigned to go to the lab where they restrain Cash and render Morrow unconscious. While Wendy pursues Boy Cavalier, Neebs rushes to meet Dame Sylvia, but it's a ploy. He has Atom Ains deliver Joe to him. Auxiliaries pursue Joe after removing the sheep carcass. Naturally, Wendy intervenes at the last minute to save him before that may occur. Atom Ains also appears, but Wendy is able to stop his attack by controlling the software. It appears that she can easily hack it because he is connected to the same network as the other devices.
You're supposed to help people.
The eyeball thing escapes as well, making its way straight to the shore where it seizes possession of others' lifeless corpses. Meanwhile, the xenomorph breaks into the building and starts murdering the remaining troops. Wendy tells Joe that the xenomorphs are honest, which is why she likes them. She informs Joe that although humans are its food, she is not one of them and is confined to a space where she is uncertain of who she is. Boy Cavalier goes to his airship by himself, but the xenomorph follows him and soon captures him. The alien glides by Cavalier without killing him and targets the other troops first when they arrive. Rashidi and the other troops immediately enter the lab to unlock the confinement cages, while Wendy and Joe also appear. Naturally, their attempts result in their deaths, and Carly also shows up and incapacitates the other soldier.